The galaxy had always thought Earth was just a story, something people talked about but didn't really believe. That all changed one day when a massive fleet of ships appeared out of nowhere near the center of the Galactic Empire. These ships weren't small or weak. They were huge, powerful, and looked ready for battle. The leader of this fleet was Commander Daniel Hayes, a calm but determined man who stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eclipse *. Behind him, rows of crew members worked tirelessly, their faces focused as they prepared for what was coming next. The Galactic Empire wasn't used to being surprised. For centuries, they had ruled over countless planets, spreading their influence across the stars. But now, staring at the screen showing the human armada, their leaders felt something they hadn't felt in a long time. Fear. No one knew where these ships came from or how they had built such advanced technology. All they knew was that humanity had arrived, and it didn't look like they were here to make friends. On board the Eclipse *, Captain Rachel Monroe watched silently as Imperial scouts tried to approach the fleet. She leaned against a console, her sharp eyes scanning the situation. The scouts never got close enough to do anything meaningful. Every attempt was blocked by smaller human ships that moved with precision, like hunters circling their prey. It was clear that humanity had planned this moment carefully. There would be no negotiations, no offers of peace. This was an invasion, pure and simple. Daniel stood near the front of the bridge, looking out at the vast expanse of space. His mind went back to the stories he'd heard as a child, stories about how the Empire had once visited Earth. They hadn't come as friends. Instead, they had taken everything valuable, leaving Earth broken and abandoned. Humanity survived, though. They rebuilt, learned, and grew stronger in secret. Now, after centuries of waiting, they were here to settle the score. Rachel walked up beside him, her voice steady but firm. "They're panicking," she said, nodding toward the Imperial ships scattered around them. "Good. Let them feel what we felt when they left us to die." Daniel nodded but didn't say anything. He knew this moment was bigger than just revenge. It was about proving that humanity wasn't weak, that they could stand toe-to-toe with anyone in the galaxy. Still, he couldn't deny the weight of history pressing down on him. Everything humanity had suffered, every sacrifice made, had led to this point. And now, finally, they were ready. As the hours passed, the Empire made several attempts to communicate. Each message was ignored. Humanity's silence spoke louder than any words could. On the Imperial side, confusion turned into frustration and then outright panic. Their leaders scrambled to figure out what to do, sending orders to nearby fleets to gather reinforcements. But even as those orders were given, humanity's ships began moving, positioning themselves strategically around the Empire's core systems. Back on the Eclipse *, Lieutenant Emily Ross entered the bridge. She carried a data pad filled with information about the Empire's defenses. "We've analyzed their weakest points," she told Daniel. "If we strike now, we can cripple their ability to fight back." Daniel studied the data for a moment before turning to Rachel. "What do you think?" he asked. Rachel crossed her arms. "I think we've waited long enough," she replied. "Let's show them why they should have never messed with us." With that, the decision was made. Orders were sent out across the fleet, and engines roared to life. Humanity's Armada began its advance, marking the start of a conflict that would change the galaxy forever. For the first time in centuries, the Empire found itself facing an enemy it couldn't easily crush. And deep down, they knew this war wouldn't end well for them. Commander Daniel Hayes gathered his senior officers in a dimly lit briefing room aboard the Eclipse *. The large table in the center was covered with holographic maps and displays, showing key systems and Imperial outposts. Everyone sat quietly, waiting for Daniel to speak. He stood at the head of the table, his expression serious but calm. "We need to understand why we're here," Daniel began, his voice steady. "This isn't just about revenge. It's about justice, for Earth, for our ancestors, and for every human who suffered because of them. He paused, letting his words sink in. Then he continued, explaining the history that had brought humanity to this moment. Centuries ago, the Galactic Empire had discovered Earth. At first, they pretended to be allies, trading technology and knowledge. But it didn't last long. Once they realized how rich Earth's resources were, they turned on humanity. They stripped the planet of everything valuable: minerals, energy sources, even plants and animals. When there was nothing left to take, they abandoned Earth, leaving its people to starve and struggle. Humanity survived, though barely. Over time, they rebuilt their world, hiding their progress from the Empire so they wouldn't be attacked again. Lieutenant Emily Ross leaned forward, her sharp eyes scanning the faces around the table. "We've spent centuries preparing for this," she said. "Every ship, every weapon, every strategy. It's all been leading up to now. But we can't let anger blind us. We have to stay focused." Rachel Monroe nodded in agreement. She was sitting across from Emily, her arms crossed as she listened carefully. "Emily's right," Rachel added. "Revenge might feel good, but it won't win this war. We need to think ahead. What happens after we defeat the Empire? Are we ready to lead?" Daniel appreciated their input. He trusted both women deeply, knowing they balanced each other out. Emily was passionate and driven, while Rachel was cautious and strategic. Together, they made a strong team. Still, he knew not everyone shared their vision. Some in the fleet wanted nothing more than to destroy the Empire completely, no matter the cost. As the meeting went on, the officers discussed their next moves. Emily suggested targeting specific Imperial outposts that served as communication hubs. By cutting off the Empire's ability to talk to its fleets, they could create chaos and confusion. Daniel liked the idea. It would give humanity an early advantage and show the Empire just how serious they were. But not everyone was convinced. Lieutenant James Cole, one of the newer members of the team, spoke up hesitantly. "What if we're underestimating them?" he asked. "The Empire has ruled this galaxy for centuries. They're not going to give up easily." Daniel smiled faintly. "You're right," he admitted. "They won't make this easy. But that's why we've trained for this. We know what we're fighting for, and that gives us an edge they'll never understand." After the meeting ended, Daniel stayed behind in the briefing room. He stared at the holographic map, thinking about the battles ahead. This wasn't just about winning a war. It was about proving something. Humanity had been dismissed as weak and insignificant for too long. Now they had a chance to show the galaxy who they truly were. Rachel found him still standing there, lost in thought. "You okay?" she asked softly. He glanced at her and nodded. "Just thinking about what's at stake," he replied. "If we fail, it's not just us who lose. It's everyone who believes in what we're doing." Rachel placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We're not going to fail," she said firmly. "Not when we've come this far." With renewed determination, Daniel straightened up and turned off the hologram. The time for planning was over. Now it was time to act. Humanity's Armada was ready, and the Empire would soon learn just how dangerous Earth's forgotten children could be. The Galactic Empire decided to send envoys to meet with humanity's leaders, hoping to avoid a full-scale war. They chose Ambassador Peter Lang for the task, a man known for his sharp tongue and unwavering loyalty to the Empire. He arrived aboard the Imperial cruiser Vanguard *, escorted by a small fleet of ships flying under a flag of truce. The human Armada allowed them to approach but kept their weapons trained on the visitors, making it clear they weren't trusted. Peter stepped onto the Eclipse * with an air of arrogance, flanked by 2 guards in polished uniforms. He was greeted by Commander Daniel Hayes and Captain Rachel Monroe, who stood side by side near the airlock. Their expressions were cold and unreadable, giving nothing away. As Peter walked forward, he glanced around at the sleek design of the ship, noting how advanced it seemed compared to Imperial vessels. For a moment, he felt uneasy, but he quickly pushed the feeling aside. "Commander Hayes," Peter began, his voice dripping with condescension, "I must admit, I'm surprised to see you here. Primitive upstarts like yourselves shouldn't even have ships capable of crossing the stars." Rachel stepped forward before Daniel could respond. Her tone was icy as she stared directly at Peter. "Primitive? Is that what your empire tells itself to sleep at night?" she asked. "We're not here to listen to insults. If you've come to talk, do so. Otherwise, leave." Peter hesitated, caught off guard by her bluntness. He tried to regain control of the situation, clearing his throat and straightening his posture. "Very well," he said stiffly. "Let's discuss terms. You've made your point by showing up uninvited. Now perhaps we can reach an agreement that benefits both sides." Daniel crossed his arms, his patience wearing thin. "There are no terms," he replied firmly. "Your empire stole from us, left us to die. And now you expect us to negotiate. This isn't a negotiation. It's retribution." Peter frowned, clearly frustrated. "You don't understand what you're doing," he snapped. "The Empire has ruled this galaxy for centuries because it deserves to. Without us, there would be chaos." Emily Ross, who had been standing quietly nearby, stepped forward. "Deserves to," she repeated, her voice rising. "You think exploiting innocent worlds makes you worthy? We've seen the damage you've caused, not just to Earth, but to countless others. Your rule ends here." Peter glared at her, but didn't respond. Instead, he turned back to Daniel, trying one last time to reason with him. "If you continue down this path, you'll regret it," he warned. "The Empire will crush you, no matter how many ships you bring." Daniel shook his head, his expression hardening. "You underestimate us," he said, "and that's why you'll lose." With nothing left to say, Peter signaled to his guards, and they turned to leave. Before stepping back onto the Vanguard he shot one final glare at the human officers. "This isn't over," he muttered, though his words lacked conviction. Once the Imperial delegation was gone, Rachel let out a slow breath. "That went about as well as expected," she remarked dryly. "He's scared," Emily added. "They all are. That's why they sent someone like him, to stall us while they figure out what to do." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "They'll try to fight back soon," he said, "but they won't be ready. Let's make sure we hit them where it hurts first." As the group dispersed to prepare for the coming battles, the tension aboard the Eclipse grew thicker. Everyone knew the next few days would decide the fate of the galaxy. The Empire had underestimated humanity once before, and now they were about to learn the consequences of that mistake. Humanity struck first, targeting key Imperial outposts scattered across the galaxy. Lieutenant Emily Ross led the operation, commanding strike teams that moved with precision and speed. Their mission was clear: disable the Empire's communication hubs, cutting off their ability to coordinate defenses. Without a way to share information, the Empire's vast network of ships and planets would fall into chaos. The attack began in the early hours of Galactic Standard Time. Cloaked human fighters slipped past Imperial patrols, their advanced technology rendering them nearly invisible. Once in position, they unleashed devastating strikes on the communication arrays. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as towers crumbled and satellites were reduced to debris. The Empire's leaders scrambled to respond, but by the time they realized what was happening, it was already too late. While Emily's teams worked to cripple the Empire's communications, Commander Daniel Hayes launched the main assault. His target was a heavily fortified mining colony controlled by Governor Marcus Hale, a ruthless man known for his loyalty to the Empire. The colony wasn't just a source of valuable resources, it was also a strategic stronghold. If humanity could capture it, they would gain both supplies and a foothold deep within Imperial territory. The battle was fierce. Imperial forces fought back with everything they had, deploying squadrons of fighters and unleashing barrages of missiles. But humanity's ships were faster, stronger, and more advanced. Pilots like Laura Bennett maneuvered through enemy fire with ease, picking off targets while protecting their teammates. On board the Eclipse Captain Rachel Monroe coordinated the attack, her voice steady over the comms as she directed each phase of the operation. Despite the resistance, humanity's forces pushed forward. Ground troops landed on the colony's surface, engaging in close-quarters combat with Imperial soldiers. Among them was Sergeant Paul Carter, a seasoned fighter who led his unit with courage and determination. They fought their way through narrow corridors and crowded bunkers, taking control of critical areas one by one. By the time they reached the Central Command Center, most of the colony was under their control. Inside the command center, Governor Marcus Hale refused to surrender. Surrounded by guards, he shouted orders, trying to rally his remaining forces, but it was hopeless. Humanity's soldiers overwhelmed them, capturing Hale alive. As he was dragged away, his face twisted with anger and disbelief. He couldn't comprehend how a species once considered weak had grown so powerful. Among the prisoners taken during the battle was Lieutenant Sophia Blake, an Imperial officer whose loyalty began to waver when she saw the destruction caused by her own side. She had always believed in the Empire's superiority, but now she questioned whether its rule was truly justified. When Emily approached her cell later, Sophia offered to provide valuable intelligence in exchange for protection. Emily hesitated before agreeing. She didn't trust Sophia completely, but the information she promised could be crucial. Sophia revealed details about Imperial defenses, troop movements, and even secret weapon caches. With this newfound knowledge, humanity gained a significant advantage. As the dust settled on the captured colony, Daniel surveyed the scene from the bridge of the Eclipse. The victory was important, but he knew it was only the beginning. The Empire still had countless ships and soldiers at its disposal, and it wouldn't give up without a fight. Still, the success of the operation proved something vital. Humanity wasn't just capable of standing against the Empire. They were stronger than anyone had anticipated. Rachel joined Daniel on the bridge, watching as repair crews worked to fix damage sustained during the battle. "We did well," she said quietly, "but they'll come at us harder next time." Daniel nodded, his gaze fixed on the stars ahead. "Let them," he replied. "We're ready." With the first major victory secured, humanity prepared for the next phase of their campaign. The Empire had been shaken, but the real fight was yet to come. News of humanity's victory spread quickly across the galaxy, reaching even the farthest corners of the Empire. For years, the Imperial government had painted itself as unbeatable, a force that brought order and prosperity to every world it touched. But now, cracks were starting to show. Stories of Earth's rise and the Empire's failures reached the ears of ordinary citizens, sparking doubt and unrest. On some planets, people began to question whether the Empire truly deserved their loyalty. On Calaxis, a mining world deep in Imperial territory, whispers of rebellion grew louder. The planet's resources had been drained for decades, leaving its people poor and desperate. When word arrived that humanity was fighting back against the Empire, many saw hope where there had only been despair. Benjamin Ford, a local leader known for his fiery speeches, seized the moment. He gathered crowds in secret meetings, urging them to rise up and support humanity's cause. "They've bled us dry," Benjamin told a group of miners one evening, his voice echoing through the dimly lit room. "The Empire doesn't care about us. They never did. But these humans, they're different. They've suffered like we have. If we stand with them, maybe we can build something better." His words struck a chord. Within days, small acts of defiance began to appear. Workers sabotaged equipment, slowing down production. Others smuggled supplies to nearby rebel groups hiding in the mountains. Imperial officers tried to crush the growing resistance, but their efforts only fueled the fire. The people of Calaxis were tired of being treated as tools for the Empire's greed. Back aboard the Eclipse, Daniel Hayes learned about the uprising on Calaxis. At first, he was cautious. Trusting strangers, even those who claimed to oppose the Empire, was risky. Rachel Monroe shared his concerns. "We don't know if they're sincere or just using us to get rid of one oppressor for another," she warned during a meeting with the senior staff. Emily Ross, however, argued in favor of helping the rebels. "If we turn our backs on them, we'll lose more than an ally," she said. "We'll lose the chance to show the galaxy that we're here to free them, not rule them. That's what this fight is about, isn't it?" After much debate, Daniel made his decision. He ordered a small fleet to head to Calaxis, carrying weapons and supplies for the rebels. The mission would be led by Lieutenant Laura Bennett, who had proven herself in previous battles. Her task was simple: assist the uprising without drawing too much attention from the Empire. When Laura's ships arrived, they found the rebels eager and ready. Benjamin greeted them warmly, thanking them for their support. Together, they launched coordinated attacks on Imperial outposts across the planet. The Empire's forces, already stretched thin from humanity's earlier strikes, struggled to respond effectively. One by one, their strongholds fell, freeing Calaxis from Imperial control. The success of the rebellion sent shockwaves through the Empire. Other colonies, inspired by Calaxis, began to rise up as well. Some openly declared their support for humanity, while others quietly resisted Imperial rule. The Empire's grip on its territories was slipping, and there was little it could do to stop it. As reports of these uprisings reached the *Eclipse*, Daniel felt a sense of cautious optimism. Humanity wasn't alone in this fight anymore. Across the galaxy, people were choosing sides, not because they feared humanity, but because they believed in its vision of justice and freedom. Rachel stood beside him on the bridge, watching the stars outside. "It's working," she said softly. "They're losing faith in the Empire." Daniel nodded, though his expression remained serious. "Faith is one thing," he replied, "but until we take down the heart of the Empire, this war isn't over." With new allies joining their cause, humanity prepared for the next phase of the campaign. The road ahead was still long and dangerous, but for the first time, the Empire's downfall seemed possible, and that gave everyone hope. With the Empire's control slipping across the galaxy, humanity set its sights on the ultimate prize. Nova Prime, the capital of the Galactic Empire. It was a heavily fortified planet, surrounded by layers of orbital defenses and protected by an army of ships. For centuries, it had been the heart of Imperial power, a symbol of dominance that no one dared to challenge. But now, Commander Daniel Hayes and his fleet were ready to bring it down. The plan was risky but straightforward. Humanity's forces would focus all their strength on breaching the orbital defenses, creating an opening for ground troops to land on the planet's surface. The key to success lay in timing and precision. Any mistake could cost them dearly. Lieutenant Emily Ross took charge of disabling the defense grid, using cloaked drones to infiltrate the system undetected. These small, agile machines carried powerful disruptors designed to shut down the massive turrets guarding Nova Prime. As the Armada approached, the tension aboard the Eclipse was palpable. Captain Rachel Monroe stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the screen showing the enemy's movements. "This is it," she said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. "No turning back." Daniel nodded, his jaw tight with determination. He knew what was at stake. If they failed here, the Empire would regain its footing and crush not only humanity, but also the rebellion spreading across its territories. Victory wasn't just important, it was essential. The attack began under the cover of darkness. Cloaked drones slipped through the orbital perimeter, avoiding detection as they made their way to critical points in the defense grid. Once in position, they unleashed their payloads, disabling turrets one by one. Alarms blared across the Imperial fleet as their defenses started to crumble. Chaos erupted among the enemy ranks, giving humanity's ships the opening they needed. Under Daniel's command, the main fleet surged forward, engaging the remaining Imperial ships in a brutal battle. Explosions lit up the void as fighters darted between larger vessels, exchanging fire. Pilots like Laura Bennett pushed their ships to the limit, weaving through enemy formations and taking out targets with deadly accuracy. The air crackled with energy as both sides fought fiercely, neither willing to give ground. Meanwhile, Rachel led a boarding party toward the Imperial Palace ship, a massive vessel orbiting Nova Prime. This ship housed Emperor Victor Kane, the man who represented everything the Empire stood for. Taking him out would deal a crippling blow to Imperial morale. The mission was dangerous, but Rachel didn't hesitate. She knew what had to be done. The boarding party fought their way through the palace ship's corridors, facing waves of Imperial soldiers determined to protect their leader. Rachel moved with purpose, her weapon steady in her hands. Behind her, her team followed closely, trusting her instincts. They pushed deeper into the ship, leaving a trail of fallen enemies in their wake. Finally, they'd reached the throne room. Inside, Emperor Victor Kane stood alone, his face pale with fear. He tried to reason with Rachel, offering wealth and power if she spared his life. But Rachel didn't waver. "Your time is over," she said coldly, her voice cutting through his pleas. Realizing he had no other options, Kane activated a self-destruct sequence, hoping to take Rachel and her team with him. But Rachel was faster. She signaled her team to retreat, and they barely escaped as the palace ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The Emperor's death sent shockwaves through the Empire, shattering its morale and leaving its people leaderless. Back on the Eclipse Asterisk, Daniel watched the destruction unfold. The fall of Nova Prime marked a turning point in the war. The Empire was broken, its power crumbling. Humanity had proven itself stronger than anyone thought possible. But Daniel knew the fight wasn't over yet. There was still work to do, to rebuild, to heal, and to ensure this victory lasted. The death of Emperor Victor Kane spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For centuries, the Empire had been built around his rule, and now that he was gone, its foundation crumbled. Imperial officers scrambled to take control, but without a clear leader, their efforts were disjointed and ineffective. Planets once loyal to the Empire began declaring independence, while others openly welcomed humanity's forces. The war was far from over, but it was clear who held the upper hand. On board the Eclipse Asterisk, Commander Daniel Hayes gathered his senior officers to discuss the next steps. The mood in the room was tense but hopeful. They had achieved what many thought impossible. They had broken the Empire's grip on the galaxy. But Daniel knew better than to celebrate too soon. "We've won battles," he said, looking around the table. "But this war isn't finished until every world is free." Lieutenant Emily Ross nodded in agreement. She had spent hours analyzing reports from planets across the Empire. Many were still under Imperial control, ruled by governors unwilling to surrender. "Some of these leaders will fight to the end," she warned. "They're scared of what happens if they lose." Captain Rachel Monroe leaned forward, her expression serious. "Then we hit them hard and fast," she said. "Show them that resistance is pointless. Every day they hold out, more people suffer." The team quickly devised a plan to divide their forces. Smaller fleets would be sent to liberate key planets, while the main Armada focused on dismantling any remaining Imperial strongholds. Laura Bennett volunteered to lead one of the smaller fleets, eager to continue the fight. "These people have suffered enough," she told Daniel before leaving. "I want to make sure they know help is here." As the missions unfolded, humanity's forces encountered both fierce resistance and unexpected allies. On some planets, Imperial soldiers surrendered as soon as they saw the human ships approaching, realizing the Empire's time was over. On others, local populations rose up, joining the fight against their oppressors. Benjamin Ford and his rebels from Calaxis traveled to neighboring worlds, spreading the message that freedom was within reach. But not all battles were easy. On a distant moon controlled by Governor Elena Cruz, a stubborn Imperial loyalist, humanity faced one of its toughest challenges yet. Cruz refused to back down, fortifying her position and vowing to fight to the death. Her forces clashed with humanity's troops in a brutal battle that lasted for days. In the end, it was Lieutenant Sophia Blake, now working closely with humanity, who provided critical intelligence about Kruz's weaknesses. With this information, Laura's fleet launched a decisive strike, forcing crews to surrender. Back aboard the Eclipse Asterisk, Daniel reflected on how much had changed since their journey began. Humanity had risen from the ashes of Earth's past, proving itself stronger and more united than anyone imagined. But the cost of victory weighed heavily on him. Too many lives had been lost, both human and alien, in the fight for justice. Rachel joined him on the bridge, watching as stars streaked past the viewport. "It's strange," she said after a moment of silence. "For so long, we dreamed of this moment. Now that it's here, I'm not sure what comes next." Daniel sighed, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "We rebuild," he replied. "Not just our own worlds, but theirs too. We show them that we're not here to replace one empire with another. We're here to give them a choice, to live free." Emily walked up beside them, holding a data pad filled with messages from newly liberated planets. "They're already starting to trust us," she said with a small smile. "People are calling us heroes." Daniel shook his head. "We're not heroes," he said firmly. "We're just doing what should have been done centuries ago." As the galaxy slowly emerged from the shadow of the Empire, humanity took on the role of protector and guide. The road ahead would be long, filled with challenges and difficult decisions, but for the first time in history, hope shone brightly across the stars. And that, Daniel realized, was worth every sacrifice they had made. With the Empire defeated, humanity faced a new challenge: rebuilding the galaxy. The war had left deep scars, both on planets and in the hearts of those who lived through it. Commander Daniel Hayes knew that winning battles was only the first step. True victory meant creating something better from the ruins of the past. On board the Eclipse Asterisk, Daniel called a meeting with his senior officers to discuss their next moves. "The Empire is gone," he began, his voice calm but firm. "But its damage remains. We can't just leave these worlds behind. They need help to heal." Lieutenant Emily Ross nodded, her mind already working on plans. "We should start by reaching out to local leaders," she suggested. "They know their people best. If we work with them, we can rebuild faster." Captain Rachel Monroe agreed. "And we need to make sure no one feels like they're being controlled again," she added. "This has to be about freedom, not power." Daniel smiled faintly. He trusted his team completely. Together, they had fought for justice, and now they would fight for peace. Orders were sent out across the fleet, instructing ships to assist planets in need. Engineers and medical teams traveled to devastated worlds, helping repair infrastructure and care for the wounded. Food, supplies, and technology were shared freely, proving that humanity's arrival wasn't just about destruction, it was also about renewal. As word spread, more planets joined the effort. Former imperial worlds that once feared humanity now saw them as allies. Benjamin Ford and his rebels played a key role in this process, traveling between systems to encourage cooperation. "This is our chance to build something new," he told crowds gathered in town squares. "Something fair." Even Lieutenant Sophia Blake found her place in this new era. Once an officer of the Empire, she now worked alongside humanity, using her knowledge to prevent old mistakes from repeating. Her presence helped bridge the gap between humans and aliens, showing that trust could grow even after years of hatred. Back on Earth, life began to flourish once again. For centuries, the planet had been scared by the Empire's exploitation. Now, thanks to advances in technology and agriculture brought back from other worlds, it started to recover. Forests grew where barren wastelands once stood, and cities rose from the ashes of abandoned ruins. Humanity's home was finally healing. But not everyone stayed behind. Rachel Monroe decided to explore uncharted regions of space, seeking new opportunities and challenges. She believed there was still much to discover beyond the borders of the fallen empire. Before leaving, she visited Daniel one last time. "You've done your part," she said. "Now let me do mine." Daniel understood. Each person had their own path to follow, and Rachel's journey was just beginning. He wished her well, knowing she would continue to inspire others wherever she went. For Daniel, the future was clear. He remained at the forefront of humanity's efforts, guiding the transition from war to peace. It wasn't always easy. Old rivalries sometimes flared up, and resources were often scarce. But every problem solved brought them closer to the vision they had fought for, a galaxy united by choice, not fear. Years passed, and the galaxy changed. New alliances formed, trade routes reopened, and cultures blended in ways no one had imagined. Humanity became a symbol of hope, proof that even the smallest spark could ignite change. One evening, Daniel stood on the bridge of the Eclipse Asterisk, looking out at the stars. The ship was quieter now, its mission nearly complete. He thought about everything they had achieved. The battles won, the lives saved, the futures rebuilt. It hadn't been perfect, but it had been worth it. Emily walked up beside him, holding a cup of coffee. "We did it," she said softly, handing him the drink. Daniel took a sip and smiled. "Not just us," he replied. "Everyone who believed in a better future." In the end, humanity's greatest triumph wasn't defeating the Empire. It was showing the galaxy what could be built when people worked together. And as long as that spirit endured, the stars would shine brighter than ever before.